Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Midsouth during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 3 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from my time in IWA Midsouth from 1997 to 2009, and I am joined today by an IWA Midsouth original, a man that actually predates me in IWA Midsouth, and there's not many that can say that anymore. I'm joined by the American Kickboxer. How are you doing today, Kickboxer?
That's a very pleasant way to call me an antique. It's so awesome to see you, man. Hey, it's great. And we said before the show, this is the most you and I have communicated, and we've known each other. It's coming close to 28, 29 years now. So, yeah, so it's been real fun getting in contact with you and touching bases, and absolutely my pleasure to be on here with you.
Yeah, I've been telling my friends, we never really interacted all that much in our time on all those shows. You mentioned it's been almost 28 years. It will actually, we're 2-3 weeks away from the 28th anniversary of the first show in Lexington, Kentucky that got me involved in IWA Mid-South through my friends. I know you've listened and watched episode 1 when I had Ben Rich on. You were more familiar with Les Johns, who was sick and missed. I think I've actually got Les Johns agreed to come on to the podcast, and that episode should, God willing, will air on the actual 28th anniversary of that Lexington show. So we go back a lot of years, and as I sort of mentioned on episode 1, I have so many regrets of how things went back in those days. I tried to be the bad cop to Ian Rotten being the good cop, and he was always, as one of the wrestlers and knowing the struggles that you guys went through, all you had to do was call him up and he'd put you on the show, even if there was already 14 matches and knowing that there's only going to be 28 people in the crowd. And, if you asked on the show, you'd be on the show. And so I didn't have to, he didn't force me, but I thought in my role that I needed to try to keep separate from everybody, try to not have where friendships are getting in the way of making hard decisions and being able to say things like, Ian, this guy, I don't know if he's IWA material. And, looking back, I regret that because I've missed out on those interactions and staying to myself. And a lot of it was just the fact that, I was so introverted back then, even now, socially awkward. And it took so much energy to go out in front of the people and be the character that I portrayed that, after you were done, you just wanted to shut down and not be around people, which isn't any kind of an excuse for the way that I acted back then. So, if you ever thought that I didn't like you or had issues, that was never the case. So it's been great to have these, couple of weeks where we've talked more than, like you said, that we had talked in 28 years before that. So thank you
for me as well, though. A lot of people might not understand, but I did this for a living. This was a business to me. And when I got in there, I wasn't out to make friends. This was a smash and grab operation, and I'm going to the next town. So we really didn't have that kind of time anyways. I was trying to get in there and trying to get out of there as fast as I could. So again, it's been really cool these last few weeks actually getting to know you and chatting a bit. So
Yeah, so that's great. Um, I normally start off every show by just letting the listeners get to know a little bit about the guest. Some of the people listening to this podcast, didn't get to enjoy the American Kickboxer era of IWA Mid-South.
There was a
Most of
couple of them.
you had the original run where it predated Smart Mark Video. It was right from the very beginning. So many of those shows, like me and Ben had talked about, never got recorded, never never saw the light of day. Only the people that were there, and it's been 30 years. A lot of those people aren't with us anymore, unfortunately. So many of those stories have been lost to time, and it was one of the main reasons why I wanted to come back and start doing these podcasts, because I had forgotten so much. I want to refresh my memory. I want some of these stories to have the opportunity to get passed on to other people, and then hopefully it'll get people like you that maybe missed out on the Smart Mark craze, that helped put a lot of guys onto the map in the wrestling world when we had that great platform, a chance for them to get to know you. So, tell us what made you a wrestling fan, what made you get into the business, how did you get started, Kickboxer?
Uh, the first live show that I went to was in Dayton, Ohio. That's kind of where I grew up at, in the Dayton, Ohio region. And the original Sheik's Big Time Wrestling, Dayton, Ohio was part of that territory. And
Okay.
so was Cincinnati. And ironically enough, Tarek's first shows were the big time wrestling shows as well. So
Okay.
in 1977, a 5-year-old American kickboxer went to Hera Arena, and I seen the original Sheik wrestling against Pampero Firpo. And the Sheik was getting ready to throw the fireball at Pampero Firpo. And Firpo hit him with a bucket of water, and the place exploded.
Wow.
And at that moment, I knew I wanted to be a wrestler. And
Okay.
think
Even at
about it
five
now.
years old, playing with fire. Okay.
I knew it then, and you could ask me at 5 years old, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And I told you, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. And through growing up, through my childhood, one of the only things that was truly consistent was professional wrestling. No matter where I was moved to or anything like that, there was always pro wrestling. So that was one of the true consistents in my life as well.
And I had a lot of similarities to that. My first show was not when I was 5 years old. I didn't get to go um, that early. As I had told the story on the first episode of this podcast, when I was 4, my dad had an accident at work that left him paralyzed from the waist down and in a wheelchair the rest of his life. And so we didn't get, those usual father son bonding times. We couldn't do anything. Back then, it was before the American with Disabilities Act by 10 years, so everywhere had curbs. They had, non-automatic doors. There was no way for the aisles weren't wide enough for him to get through. So, I mean, he was pretty much trapped at home in his wheelchair. And so all we really could do as father son was watch TV. He was a huge wrestling fan. He used to go to the International Amphitheater in Chicago, watch Dick the Bruiser, watch the Crusher, Vern Gagne, the the Outlaws with Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes. He used to watch go and watch those. So then he passed that on to me. We would watch any kind of wrestling that would come on. More so me. He never did like WW. I guess at the time, WWWWWWF, however many damn W's they had at the time, before Vince Jr. took it over. And
Right?
but we would watch TBS. World Class would be on. We'd watch that. Bill Watts's UWF. We'd watch
You
that.
guys had that in a satellite dish then.
Well, at that point, it was just all syndicated on antenna TV.
Oh, really?
Um, except
Yeah.
for the TBS, we had cable.
Okay.
Um, but the town, growing up in Morris, Illinois, the town's cut in half by the Illinois River.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And until I was in the 8th grade, we lived north of the river. So we were able to have cable, but,
right.
He got injured while working for the Illinois State Police as a fingerprint technician, working at the Statesville prison in Joliet, where they had done, Joliet Jake for the Blues Brothers. And since he was hurt on the job, it took 8 years, but we finally got the state of Illinois to buy us a house that was handicapped accessible. There was the previous owner was in a wheelchair and had, money, and had this house built specifically for him, so his wheelchair was able to get down the hallway. He was able to get into the bathroom with his wheelchair. So we were able to move into this house, but we were south of the river, so we could not get cable. It wasn't even available at that point. If that's how old we are. There was a time where, we can't get that cable to go on the other side of the river, so you're just shit out of luck at that point. And at that point, it was like 1989. So there really wasn't as many syndicated wrestling shows on at that point. World Class was winding down. UWF had gone out of business. So we had no wrestling to watch at that point. So then my dad bought the satellite dish so we could have the wrestling. But professional wrestling was such a part of my childhood, bonding with my father, my best friend that I've had since I was 5 years old. We bonded over wrestling, and every friend that I have in my life, has some way come through being a wrestling fan or who I met in wrestling. And it was such a powerful part of my life, with those childhood memories. But I wasn't like you. I never thought for a second that I would ever get into being in professional wrestling. I didn't even think that would be an option. I had no idea. And I just, I fell ass backwards into it, right after my father had died. And, to me, it was a way that I thought it was a way to keep his memory alive with me, kind of thing. And, I guess maybe that's why I was just jumped at the opportunity and said to hell with it all and wrote it out as long as I did. But, it's interesting to hear how similar the backgrounds are between us with how strong that bond was as we were growing up.
Well, when you said all those territories, I immediately went to the satellite dish. And the reason being is my stepfather, he had a satellite television in his bedroom.
Okay.
In his bedroom, their bedroom. So whenever they would leave town for a weekend or whatever else, it was get into that room, and there was the satellite dish cable, or the TV guide for the satellite dish, if you remember, right?
Yeah.
And in the back, it said wrestling. And it showed all the shows that was coming on wrestling wise, and where to turn it to. And yeah, so once I figured that out, I was just praying for him to leave town. Just get the fuck out of here.
Now, what kind of satellite dish did you have? Did the stepfather have? Was it because we had the giant satellite that actually
you had to go outside
you had to punch cord. Yep.
At first, you had to go outside with a crank and turn it until somebody screamed, "That's it!" Okay. Later on,
ours, you had to put the coordinates in, and it would move itself. But you'd have to wait for it to sit there and do like the lawn sprinkler motion going across the sky and pull it up. And if the wind blew, it would knock it off a little bit. So you had like this manual control on ours that you could, you got to move this back an inch and a half because each satellite had like 24 channels on it, but there was like 20 different satellites that you could get onto. And
if you got onto R3 or went to F2 or
Yep. So the same kind.
For me, as I said, in doing that, I got all those territories as well. But every once in a while, you get Telemundo and you get Lucha Libre. And then
Okay.
the great moments, you get on that news channel and they had Polynesian Pacific.
Okay.
And yeah, so for me, that was like heaven at that point. But yeah, I was the same everywhere that I had went. Once Channel 17 took off, if I wasn't home by 6:05 on Saturday, my whole
Oh.
fucking weekend was ruined.
And I would hate when the Braves made it an hour instead of 2 hours. Be like,
well,
damn it, I want 2 hours, you know? And
what
in
was the
two,
guy's name? Ray Murphy, or is that his name? The Murphy was one of the guys that played for the Braves. That's the only
Dale
Dale
Murphy.
Murphy. Well,
Dale
Dale
Murphy.
Murphy, yes. That's the only reason why I know his name was the waiting for wrestling to come on.
Yeah, it was always my dream in my time with wrestling, and it killed me. I wanted so badly to be able to be on a TV show and do commentary just so I could do the David Crockett, Tony Schiavone, we're out of time. Come back next
Yes.
week to see what happened. And every week it would drive. I'm like, no, how does it?
Right.
No, I can't wait to next week to find out what happened. And
And
I
they never
always
came
wanted to
back.
do that.
And they
Always
never
wanted to do
came
that.
back with it. They
Right.
never came back with it.
Never.
Those lying bastards. I was there.
Yep. Those are great memories of the childhood. So you knew right away that you wanted to become a professional wrestler. So what steps did you take to actually make that dream come true?
Well, my favorite wrestler at that time was a great Kabuki. So the name American Kickboxer is because I'm a legitimate martial artist. I started in the martial arts a little bit after the age of 5. I first started in Taekwondo. And then from there, from moving, I started into another style of martial arts, which was called Kusateme Seikan, which is an Okinawan form of karate, which was founded by Gichin Funakoshi, if anybody. But anyhow, uh, through doing that, I started going to martial arts tournaments. And in that Dayton area, I started to get a little well known with the team that I was on because we were kind of dominant at different tournaments. So that gave us an open door to go train at other gyms as well. So by the time I was 12 years old, I had trained in multiple different dojos just because I was given an open door to do that. And also at the time, I started Greco Roman and freestyle wrestling because the only thing that you would ever hear Gordon Soley talk about was how important that amateur background was. And by God, if Gordon Soley said it, that's as good as the Bible to me. And
Right. That was the voice of my childhood. Gordon Soley with the suplex and the crimson mask on the face, and love
oh,
some Gordon
completely,
Soley.
completely. And then imagine later on, I would spend a lot of time in Corbin, Kentucky, and Gordon Soley was the voice for Southeastern Wrestling as well. So I
Okay.
would see, yeah, and it was an amazing time. And but as I said, I had done martial arts, and then I had done Greco-Roman. They call it folk style now, AAU wrestling
Okay.
on the school team, and I went to the 8th grade. Legit, that was as far as I went in school, just because of a kind of a very troubled child background. But I was the number one wrestler in the state of Ohio in my division in the 8th grade. So,
Okay. I had tried to do amateur wrestling when I was in high school,
right.
and in eighth grade, and every I was finding out that everything I wanted to do was illegal because I was constantly trying to pile driver, a suplex, trying trying to like throw elbows and just do. And
if I get them with the
coach,
mist.
and the coach was always like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I did it in high school for 3 years, and and it was always, I was like, you little guys had it lucky, at least in Illinois. I don't know about where you were at, but in Illinois, like you little guys, you had a weight class every 5 pounds.
Yeah.
But then you get up into the guys my size. My choice, like I weighed 165 pounds, so my choice was lose 5 pounds to get
Or
to
go to
100,
180.
to go to 160, or the next one was 171. Then the one after
Okay.
that was 189, and then it went from 189 to 275. Those were the choices, and the coach would get mad at me. He would tell me, lose 5 pounds. I want you at 160. And I'd go, fuck that. I like to eat. I'm not losing 5 pounds. And so every meet, it would be, one night I'd be 189. The next night I'd be 275. The next meet I'd be 170. Like he would never put me at the 171 that I was closest to. It would always be, well, you're either going to be 189 or you're going to be 275. And after a while of getting crushed by the 275 guys that were over 100 pounds heavier than me, and realizing I can't suplex them, I can't pile drive, I can't pick them up into a torture rack and be Lex Luger.
Right.
I was like, the hell with this. And so the teacher that ran the speech team ended up recruiting me for the speech team. And I was like, it's a lot easier for me to run my mouth than to go out there. And
that's it.
and that ended up, helping me with what I decided to do with my part of wrestling. But, it sounds like you just put in a hell of a lot of work, and I know how much effort it would take to put into those matches and to be ranked number one. That's a lot of dedication. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of skill.
And from that, as I said, I didn't get to follow up that or go to the ninth grade and whatnot. I ended up going to the Job Corps, and I went to 2 different Job Corps centers, and I got my GED in Pine Knot, Kentucky in 1989.
Okay.
And at that time, I would see every once in a while independent wrestling posters that were around. And in 1990, end of 89, 90, I was in my second Job Corps center. After getting my GED, I was offered a chance to go to college, a full paid ride, if I went through a program at the Knoxville Job Corps. And which was about 2 hours from where my grandparents were at in Corbin, Kentucky.
Okay.
So, anyhow, with that Job Corps center, when I would get time off, I would go back to my grandparents and I'd hang out with my grandparents and I'd spend time with them and I'd see these independent posters. And at that point in time, I decided this is how I'm getting in.
Okay.
And
do you remember who it was that was putting on those shows at that time?
Yeah, I won't give their names just because I'll explain in a minute. But
okay.
I went to this show and these guys, they promised me everything under the sun, that they had connections, that when I went back to Dayton, Ohio, that if I just tell Al Snow who they were, that Al Snow would put me right to work. And so every time that I had a chance from that Job Corps, understand I didn't drive. So I would hitchhike from Knoxville to Corbin, Kentucky,
wow.
to wherever they were running this independent show at, and I'd hitchhike from my grandparents to there. Wow. And sometimes getting there hours before anybody would get there. So say like Manchester was a town that they would run, Manchester, Kentucky, at the baseball field.
Okay.
And I would get there hours before anybody. So I'd crash out in the baseball dugout until a ring would show up. And then I'd set up the ring, and then these guys would beat me up for a while. And then I'd hang out, tear down the ring, and then I'd hitchhike back to my grandparents' house. And I did that for a few months, getting trained. And it turned out that these guys were con artists. And when I went to Al Snow's, when I finally go to Al Snow's and I said, well, this guy trained me, he looked at me like I was from Mars. And I said, well, what about this guy? And he said, well, you need to get trained. And at that point, I was completely heartbroken, right? But
Now,
by chance,
before that start, not to cut you off, but before that started, did you even realize that like independent wrestling was a thing? Because you say you came across these flyers and you saw the show. Did you know that that was even a thing? Because I can remember I never thought that there was like anything like that.
well,
And when I was at a grocery store, probably about the time I was 13, 14, I went into the grocery store and saw a flyer, and it was like Mike Samples was doing some kind of a fair show up by Morris. And I'm like, I've never even heard of Mike Samples. And I'm looking at him like I've never heard of these guys. Who are these guys? And it
but
just
for
blew my
me,
mind that there was even that level of rest. I thought everything was just what I read in the After magazines at the time.
now, believe it or not, that area was a really, really hotbed for wrestling. And the Welch family, okay, you were
Okay,
talking
yeah,
about the Fullers and the Welches, they
right.
ran that territory forever. So it was a common thing for wrestling to be there and to be in that area. So this was to tell my grandparents, yeah, I'm going here to train to wrestle. It was, yeah, we've watched wrestling, blah 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 blah, and they were almost giving credibility to these guys without even realizing it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And so, anyhow, as I said, these guys beat me up, basically used me and whatnot. And by chance, I would happen to be in a bar one night, a karaoke bar. And this guy was going up and he was singing karaoke. And before he was announced to sing, the DJ, well, this guy's going to be the next champion in the WWF. And he announces him. And I'm like, okay. And I asked after the guy got done singing, I'm like, hey, what the fuck's up with this? And he's like, yeah, I'm training to be a wrestler. And I said, really? I said, where you train at? And it happened to be less than a mile from where this bar was. It was at a martial arts gym. And I said, well, what day do you train? And he told me. And I said, who's your trainer? And he said who it was. And it was one of the guys who was down south fucking beating me up and the whole fucking bit.
Mm.
So I went into that place with the intention of beating the shit out of this guy in front of all his students, in front of everybody. I came in there to beat the fuck out of this guy, with no questions asked. And when I walked in, he said, hey, it's you. It's so great to see you, man. And he started putting me over to everybody in this place. And now my ego started to take over a little bit.
Right.
And I actually wrestled for that guy that night in that gym.
Wow.
Okay, he was running a show. But ironically enough, that's where I met Tarek because
Okay.
Tarek was trained by this same guy. But his hook was for these guys that his good friend Les Thatcher was getting ready to come in and take over and help him train, and all of us were going to have jobs in Smoky Mountain because Les was helping expand Smoky Mountain with Coronet.
Okay.
And Les showed up. Have you met Les?
I have actually. I
Hey.
told the story on episode 1 where
Oh,
Les
I
Thatcher.
remember. Yes.
Les Thatcher was that was when he was the acting commissioner for IWA Midsouth,
I
and
helped get him that gig.
and when and when uh and when my friend Ben went into the ring to set up the angle to lead to the Lexington show, Les just berated us up one side and down the other in the back with like, "You motherfuckers, how dumb are you that you fucking would get into the ring? I thought you were smarter than that." Because I mean, we acted a
Yeah,
fool in the
you guys
crowd.
didn't
We
hit
we
him for it.
made we
Yeah.
made ourselves known, but he was just chewing us out. And then we looked at him, we're like, it wasn't a shoot, man. We were supposed to do it. We weren't supposed to
Wah,
get
wah.
we weren't supposed to, Ben wasn't supposed to break his shoulder, but he was supposed to do that. And then just
So,
the look that just flooded over, he was like, "Well, nobody fucking tells me anything," and he
so
storms out. And I think by the time I really started getting active, then he was gone. And
mhm.
whatever it, and I to this day don't know what happened between him and Ian, and probably don't want to know. I got a pretty damn good idea of what it,
so
what it
so
was,
imagine
but
so imagine if you will that this con artist has been building up that his good friend Les Thatcher's coming in, his buddy Les Thatcher's coming in, and
uh-huh.
Les walked into that gym. Les looked this guy in the face and said, "You're nothing but a fucking thief. You've been taking these kids' money. You're nothing but a con artist. You need to get the fuck out of here right now." And this guy picked up his shit and walked out of his own fucking gym. And
Wow,
Les took over. Okay, it wasn't his gym. He was paying the martial arts dojo to
right.
teach there, but he walked out of that establishment that day, and Les Thatcher took over as the trainer. So that's how I
Wow,
ended up with Thatcher.
nice. Well, that lucky for you that happened from the sound of it, because
Yeah,
you might have had a very different, less fortunate career had that not
right.
happened.
But again, as I said, the really good thing that came from that, besides starting to train with Les himself, was that's where I met Tarek. And that's where it all began with him and I.
Okay, that
That was 1992.
1992. I was getting my heart broken by Christian Leitner in 1992, but that you and Tarek were phenomenal. It was, and I'll tell you this right now while I've got you on here, that was the match that hooked me, Ben, and Les. That was it. When Les and I had gone to Starcade 95, we went to Starcade 96. We went to a couple of nitros together. We went to an ECW fan con and was watching ECW, and that's when we like AOL Grandstand was the thing. Internet was just a fledgling thing at that point. We're
Uh-huh.
going to the University of Kentucky. You couldn't take online classes because online classes weren't a thing at that point.
Right.
Is how old we are. But we got onto AOL Grandstand, found out that Ian Rotten, who we had seen on ECW, who we had actually heard of, was running these shows an hour and a half down the road in Louisville, Kentucky. And we went, and the first night, I mean, we loved the show, we loved everything, but it was you and Tarek that just blew our mind, doing things that we had never seen before, haven't seen since. You're like running up walls and kicking off walls and doing like flips and shit that you know I don't think a person can do on a trampoline. And you two were doing it, and it was just so amazing to see that you guys were the reason that we came back the next week, and you were just as good. We came back the next, you guys hooked us. It was you, so I can blame you and Tarek for all the evil shit that happened to me in my time in wrestling. It's all your guys' fault for being as good as you were.
Now, by the time you had gotten there, you said in 97,
January
him
of
and I,
'97. Yeah.
him and I had worked with each other in 96 over 150 times with each other.
And
And
that was the thing back then. If you, especially with the way the territories and the small independents and stuff were, if they saw you, you could work with this guy. You two were married to each other, basically.
well,
With
we were an attraction, the same as you would bring in the women or the midgets. Um, they brought us in the same regards, usually with the thought of it being a one-off. But him and I were fortunate enough with our training that we understood how to tell a story. And we'd leave that story open ended after that first match to where the promoter would say, "Hey, you want to come back next week?" And we'd leave it open ended again at that. And you want to come back? So at that point, we were working with each other 3 times a week in 52 weeks. You do the math. That's
right.
156. Yeah, we worked with each other 156 times, basically, in 1 year before you had ever seen us.
Yes.
And again, we had met in '92. So imagine.
That's a lot of
And
time no wonder you guys were so great together. And but the thing that just blew our minds is, you know, they weren't the same match.
no,
At the time, USWA would do the loop, and Evansville would have the same finish that Memphis had, that had the same finish that Louisville had, that had the same that Little Rock had, and every show, like every match is the same. And so many of the guys in that area that came through the Kentuckiana area, so many of those guys were brought up on that. And so Doug Gilbert would have the same damn match every fucking
right?
week, you know. But you guys would go out there, and everything, it was always different. It was
And
always different, and it was phenomenal to see. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And it is such a crime, an absolute crime, that it predated Smart Mark Video to where the masses didn't get to see it. Because you guys were, Punk Hero before Punk Hero. And
I was Hero's first feud in pro wrestling, if you remember correctly.
yeah,
I was the first feud he had in the wrestling. I go back. That was my
yeah,
second time around.
your second go round. But yeah, we
Yeah,
can get all to that stuff. So go back to talking about you and Tarek meeting up. I didn't mean to interrupt you and sidetrack
great.
you there, but
I'm
yeah,
truly honored. Thank you so much. What a lot of people don't understand and why Tarek and I worked with each other so much is there wasn't many small guys around. It just
yeah,
wasn't. It was a land of giants. So we had the choice of either going out there and just being job meat, if anything, if anything, or we kind of created our own groove. And that was the neat thing about it. You talked about tape trading. That was going on, and we happened to get a hold of AAA, and we happened to get a hold of Michinoku Pro, and we realized that nobody was doing that in the United States.
right.
And Thatcher told us that that's never going to get over, guys. It's never going to get over. You need to be doing baba baba. And here's the rib of it with the Thatcher deal, okay? And I'll tell you the rib, and this is the first time that anybody outside of Tarek and I have told this rib. But I helped get Thatcher, Tarek and I helped get Thatcher the gig with IWA as the commissioner, right?
Okay.
And shortly before that, if you remember, I made a heel turn to where I refused to do high flying wrestling because the fans weren't appreciating what I was doing.
Okay.
And at this show, during a match, Thatcher comes out and gets on the microphone and says, "Hey, Mark McGuire is paid to hit home runs." you're paid to be a high flying wrestler. That's what we bring you in for. That's what you get paid for. So my rib was making Thatcher come out and fucking say that. So after he had said it would never get over for the whole time. So that was my
That's
rib that I
that is great. I love that rib. Um, but what you said there about that heel turn and what you know storyline wise at least what led to that heel turn with you know not being appreciated. I actually had a question written down that I wanted to
okay,
go over
go
for
ahead.
that, so I'm going to jump in here and I wanted to know, did you and Tarek feel appreciated by the fans with what you were doing on those IWA shows, especially you know with as different as it was style wise with everybody else? And I bring that, and I had that as a question because I wasn't I wasn't privy to the, I wasn't involved at that point. So I didn't know the dynamics going on, but I know like when I was in IWA and it was after, I think it was pretty much might have been in between your time or right, maybe after you had come back that second time. I was there when Punk and Cabana and Hero and Ace Steel and all those guys came in, and I know the way that the locker room was, where you had the bullpains and you had the Madman Pondos and you had the Corporal Robinsons and you had the Mitches, the Rolands, you had those guys, and there was definitely tension between the two sides, because the hardcore guys felt like, you know, we're losing our spot. These guys are coming in and getting all the glory, and they're the new shiny toy. And then you had the new guys were like, oh well, we don't get appreciated because we're not out there doing the weapons and the blood and whatever. Was there's that kind of dichotomy with you and Tarek and the rest of the guys in the locker room, the Ox Harleys, the Pondos? Did you guys get along? Was there ego battles there? Did you
Uh,
feel the appreciation that we had for what you were doing?
yeah. Now, to tie Pondo in real quick, Pondo was the first guy that ever wanted to take everything that I had to give in the ring. Okay. And that was in 93, maybe 94.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
That's how far back I go with Pondo.
And I
Um,
can definitely I can attest I can to the listeners, that's not going to be bullshit right there, because I had that same experience with Pondo when we did the 8-man tag barbed wire match in Highland, Indiana in 2004. It was Ian, it was Balls Mahoney, it was Pondo, it was Steve Stone, and it was going against Carmine Despirito, going against me, Ryan Boz, and Brad Bradley. And like nobody was going to let me do anything. And Pondo was like, hey, let you do something, because I was going to take all four finishers. Balls Mahoney ended up hitting me with the chair. He's like, you're getting enough at the end. Let me get you something in here. And every time he'd go to let me do a move and try to like let me at least have a little bit of fun in the match, like Steve Stone would run over and attack me and stop me. And Pondo finally like threw the trash can down and looked at him and said, we're trying to do a fucking spot. Will you like lay off? And the fans were like, huh? And then Pondo like let me like whip him into the ring and get a little bit in. But so I can definitely see Pondo being the kind that where he wanted to let everybody get their have their moment. So it's great. It's I could definitely once again, here we are having shit in common that we never would have known without
now,
reconnecting. So it's great to hear that Pondo was the same way with you.
now you bring up the guys that came in from that Chicago crew. Okay. And I'll tell you our bonding moment because I got to know these guys and I still consider them friends. the bonding moment happened was it might have still been called the Sweet 16 tournament.
Okay. Yeah.
And they did 2 days of cruiserweight style wrestling. And at the end of those 2 days, he did a hardcore match at the end. Okay.
Yeah.
And all of us cruiserweights and guys who had wrestled for 2 days in a row heard, if you ain't hardcore, you ain't shit. And we started chanting in unison, we ain't shit. We ain't shit. We ain't shit. And that was our bonding moment. Me, Punk, Cabana, all of those guys standing chanting, we ain't shit. And but with those guys a little further along, I wrestled in front of my biggest crowd, in front of the biggest crowd of close to 25,000 people with Punk, Cabana, Chris Hero, Ace Steel, and myself at the Vans Warp Tour. We did both the Vans Warp Tour as well as the X Fest. So we were doing 25,000, 10,000, and I'm working with those guys. So
Nice.
I have nothing but respect, and those guys gave me nothing but respect when they came in, and they were the same way with Tarek. And I have nothing but great things to say about those guys, man. They were always really cool with me.
Okay.
But yeah, that was the second incarnation because when did you said you came in January of '97, right?
Yeah, that's when we first, when we started coming on a weekly basis and watching in the front row.
Okay.
And so it was like you and, like you said, it was you and Tarek every week. It'd be you and Tarek out there doing something, and it actually like I said, you kept getting us back into the building to see these things, and it was actually like that feud that sparked, I guess you would call it, the friendship that led to us getting involved in IWA, because Les Johns would always call the hotline every
Right.
week and be like, yeah, this is Les Johns, and me, Ben, and Jim are going to be coming up from, we want to make sure we've got front row. Leave us the 3 tickets. Sometimes we'd bring others, so it'd be, oh hey, we need 5, but get us 3 in the front row, and then maybe 2, however many others in the back row or the second row behind us, if there's not that many front row left. But then he'd sit there and he'd make comments like, you know, Tarek and Kickboxer were great tonight, but it looked an awful lot like Rob Van Dam, Sabu from ECW 3 weeks ago. And then you'd go, oh, that Ox Harley Man Pondo match, that had some great shit in it, but it's really close to Sandman versus Raven on ECW.
Everybody's
Just
got to be
throw
a
it,
critic.
just throwing that out there. It's very similar in storyline, and and then like the phone would ring at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it'd be Ian having just heard the message on the hotline, calling him and going, "What the fuck are you talking about? It's nothing like that at all." And unless it'd be like, well, they just did a respect match. Now Tarek and Kickboxer just did a respect match. You got Pondo and Ox. And you got what was it? Pondo's ex-wife was involved in that angle at one point, like Sandman's wife was. And I'm like, there is a lot of similarity. And Ian would just get so damn mad. And then they'd end up talking for like an hour and a half on the phone till 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and
Yeah.
it ended up getting springing us to where, for some reason, Les was like, I want to go into business with you and bring this here to Lexington so we don't have to drive as far to get over to the shows. But
Yeah, see, he tried to stir up heat with Sabu and I at one time. And what he did was he told Sabu to his face with me around, saying, yeah, that guy can do all the things you do, but better. And he didn't know that I'd known Sabu since fucking 93, 94. And, yeah, so he was, yeah, anyhow, I won't go into any more detail about that, but
right.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, funny enough, critics are everywhere, and that's cool, man. You guys kept buying tickets, so
Oh,
that's
right. We kept buying the tickets, and
that's it.
you know, uh, oh, so let's get into talking about the Rage Dojo. I want to share a photo, if I can get this to work right, that I saw on your Facebook. Popped. It must have been on your Facebook memories. So if I can get it to pop, can you see the photo?
It's yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
So
Those are,
you know,
those are guys from all the generations, basically, of the Rage Dojo. Um, Isaiah, of course, you know Zay.
yep, uh-huh, and then
Isaiah started with me in '99. Wow. And
it
then
was
behind me is Orlando Christopher. He follows along the same storyline as Isaiah and as Drake both. He was in high school when he started with me in Detroit and
okay.
was a wrestler and wrestles under the name Orlando Christopher. What a talented, talented guy. And Drake to my right there,
Yeah.
Drake again started with me when he was in high school. And yeah, and then Kickboxer 2 over there to my far left. And funny enough, that was a Tarek inspiration, not mine. So
Okay. All right.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So I just thought that that was a real cool photo. So
yeah,
the
that was taken in New Mexico, actually.
in New Mexico. Nice. Okay.
Yeah, we usually do a yearly show in New Mexico once a year in the town of Mountain Air, New Mexico. And
Okay.
myself and other members of the Gypsy crew, we go out and we do a wrestling show for free for this whole town. It's all taken care of sponsor wise and whatnot. But yeah, we've done that for 4 years. We didn't get to do it this year because we're going out there in August and participating in their Sunflower Festival. So
Okay.
we're going to be the afternoon evening entertainment from like 6 in the evening until whenever in
Wow.
this
That's nice.
small mountain town in Mountain Air, New Mexico. But it's a wonderful place, man. I really love it out there.
Yeah. I had one of the things I'm trying to do is get to all 50 states. So
Right?
a couple years ago, I had decided to do a trip. We were supposed my wife and I were supposed to go to England to
Mm-hmm.
watch Kentucky play basketball when they played in England.
Okay.
Um, but we some things ended up happening. There was like troubles with the our condo, leaky roof, and all this other stuff. So we had to cancel that trip. So we had this flight credit that we had to use or lose.
Right.
And so I had decided to put a trip together. I was like, I'm going to knock off two states that I'm probably never ever going to, get to any other way. So we went to New Mexico to go to the hot air balloon festival
Yeah,
because
it's awesome.
my aunt, like, she absolutely loved hot air balloons and
It had
always
to have
wanted,
been
and
it had to
she
have
had,
been around this time.
yeah, and she had always, yeah, it was right. It was a few, would have been a few weeks ago, a couple years ago,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
because we had went. My aunt had passed away; she never got to go, so I was like, I'm going to take this trip for her
Right.
and knock New Mexico off my list. So we did that. And then, that didn't, flying from Chicago to New Mexico doesn't make up for Chicago to London, England. So we still
Right.
had more credits to use. And I was like, I am going to then, when we're at New Mexico, then we're going to fly to Alaska because my
Wow.
grandma always had wanted to go to Alaska. It was her dream. And she
Mhm.
always loved, Tom Skilling on WGN News as the weatherman. He would go to Alaska like every year and put pictures up. So my grandmother was like, we have to go, or, I would go if anywhere she could go, it would have been Alaska. She had passed away. and it was her birthday, which would have been the 11th of October. So that's when we like did this trip, and we ended up going to Alaska on what would have been her birthday,
Right.
and doing that trip. And when we got to Alaska, the waitress's name at the first place we went to was the same name as my grandma.
That's awesome.
The second place we went to eat was called like Grandma's something or other. And I thought that that was and then while we were in Grandma's restaurant, I opened up Twitter and Tom Skilling announced his retirement from WGN. I was like, my grandma's with me on this trip.
That's awesome.
But New Mexico was an awesome time out in New Mexico, fun trip, and I was always like, I don't think I'd ever have a reason to go back. But then once I got there and saw how great it was, I was like, that maybe come back. We went through Roswell for just I think we spent like an hour and a half in Roswell. I didn't get to see any aliens, so maybe I gotta one day I'll have to go back out to New Mexico and see if I can come across an alien. But that's cool that you guys are still doing the shows out there and getting a chance to travel with wrestling. So that's fun
Well,
to hear.
what's cool to me is your relationship with your grandmother. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah. Yep, I can see it. Yep, it's a nice tattoo.
That's my grandmother. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a really, really wonderful bond with my grandmother as well. So it's awesome to hear your story, man.
Yeah, because my mom passed away when I was 16. So my grandmother stepped in and took over the role of being my mom until she passed away when I was 42 when so she was my mom longer than my mom was,
Yeah,
and it's a very strong
yeah,
bond. So,
yeah. Same kind of boat. You heard what I said. I hitchhiked
yeah.
back to my grandparents' house and go back to see my grandparents. So yeah, man, that's really awesome.
All right. So, we had started talking about the dojo to get into
Oh
this.
yeah.
So let's try to,
Well, what originally, I had started teaching martial arts at a really young age as well, because my sensei, he would go off and do other things, and hey, teach class tonight, and hey, teach class. And so I had started teaching martial arts at probably the age of 12 at that time, and teaching kids classes and adult classes here and there. So in '99, I had just left Memphis. I had basically worked in Memphis 98 and 99. I was involved with television production there as well for weekly television. But I came back to that area, into that Louisville, how do they say it? Louisville? Yeah, anyhow.
Louisville.
Yeah, so I came back to that area, and that night I had went out to a show, and that's the night that I had met Isaiah. And Isaiah had asked me, he said, "Hey man, could you watch my match?" Because like you as well, he had watched Tarek and I for quite a few years.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched his match, and he was a backyard guy, and
Right.
he knew how to do a few high spots, but he didn't know anything about wrestling. And as well, he's a 17-year-old kid. And I told him straight up, man, you need to learn how to wrestle. And thinking that I'm giving him solid advice. And he retorted with, "Well, can you teach me?" Wow. The ball was now back in my court. And uh, and at that time, I've had 9 years in the business, working anywhere from 3 to 5 nights a week. And you know what? I think I can teach you actually. And I had him meet me at one of another independent show that I was doing. And that's how he started with me. Before different shows, I would teach him and we'd work out before. And from there, he ended up coming and living with me. And then he would just go on the road with me. And before all these shows, he wasn't booked, but these guys would watch Isaiah work out with me and they'd watch his dedication. And that's how he'd end up getting booked. And he ended up getting booked across the country by doing that. And that's just hard work and perseverance. And still to this day, him and I talk on the phone at least once a week. So that's, yeah,
And
I
he's still
value
very active in the business, isn't he?
here and there. He's
Okay.
got his own businesses going on right now as well. He's into the survivalist and things of that nature. And
Okay.
yeah, he just got done doing a survival convention of sorts. So yeah, if anybody's interested in that, look up Isaiah. He is really, really out there. He put out uh, a guide for kids, an actual book,
Wow. Okay.
guide a guide for kids on what's actual edible in the woods and what not to eat. So he's got
Okay.
that out. Yeah.
Well, speaking of books that are coming out, you were telling me something cool about a book, weren't you?
Yeah, yeah, man. We're looking at the beginning of November. Do you have the image?
Yeah, can you see what?
It's starting to screen share. There it is, man. What an awesome picture, right?
Yeah, that was a great picture when you sent it to me, and I absolutely love the title. Absolutely love that title. So, what made you
Yeah,
decide on that title? And
the title is Gypsies Are Real and Pro Wrestling is Predetermined, Not Fake. And if you can see, that's that's how I the best way I can describe my life story is if you're into Joe Dirt, if you were into Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, if you were into The Wrestler, you're going to enjoy my story because it's a bit of all of that as well. And that picture you see there, my time machine daughter, I call her my time machine daughter, not my stepdaughter, but my time machine daughter, Hannah, actually drew that picture. I actually had asked her to look up Gary Larson's artwork. Do you know who
okay,
Gary Larson is?
is that the Far Side guy or
Yeah,
no?
exactly, exactly. The Far Side, and so she studied up on the Far Side artwork, and she actually drew that for me. She drew the cover of that work. So Hannah Fraser drew that artwork right there.
That is awesome. It's I had my godson James Christopher do like the artwork for my t-shirts and stuff. So it's great when you get to those special people in your life and get to use
Oh
them
yeah,
to help you create art. It's phenomenal. And you said it's going to come out at the beginning of November, so just in a few weeks.
yeah, in just a few weeks.
And where would people be able to buy?
Uh, we will. It will be available on Amazon. It'll be
Okay,
Walmart, and I will send you different links as well. And maybe we'll
okay,
have a promo coming out. I'll send you a promo too
okay,
as
that's
well
great.
for that. But yeah, if you can tell by the image, that was kind of my life for a while, man. I'm a legitimate gypsy to a degree, and I take a great deal of pride in that, man. Because I wasn't a thief, I wasn't a con artist, man. I worked my ass off, and I take a great deal of pride in that. I never had to short anybody. I never had to slight anybody to do the things that I've been able to do. I
And
hope that makes sense.
yeah, that's you've done an awful lot in the business, and it's great that you've when you were telling me how you wrote that book, I was impressed, and I told you the story about how there's another Jim Fannin out there that has wrote
Yeah,
a ton of books, and people were like, had reached out to me by accident, and I'm like, I don't think you want a book that I'd write, and I can't imagine, the amount of time and effort that has to go into doing something like that. How did you decide on what stories you would include in the book and which ones, you didn't make got cut and didn't make it in.
Well, it first started out, the glasses aren't a fashion statement. I deal with the brain damage, and I deal with seizures due to trauma. Okay? It's something that I deal with physically to this day. And I thought of a way to kind of address this like any other fighter would be head on. And I just started writing about it. This is what's brought me to this point that I'm at. How did I get here? What brought me to this point? And it was more of an exercise of trying to heal more than anything. And as I was reading it to my wife, she said, "This is something really good. You might think about making this a book." And so then that's where a little bit more of the thought process came in. So it's not going to be the typical, probably pro wrestling book, because I'm very, very wide open about what I come from. Okay? I was emancipated at the age of 14. Um, I come from a long line of abuse. When as I said, I went to the Job Corps to get my education. I got a GED in Pine Knot Job Corps in 1989. Went to Knoxville Job Corps, which is unfortunately now known for the only woman to be on Knoxville death row. She
Mm,
killed another student there. She was a
wow.
student in the Job Corps Center. But yeah, as I said, so that was part of my journey to get to. And another big part of it is trying to explain to others that, as outrageous as it sounded to say that I was going to be a pro wrestler at the age of 5, that dreams are possible. You just have to be willing to go after it. You have to be willing to take those risks. You have to be willing to put up with scrutiny and criticism from people who are not willing to put in the work nor have the vision or desire to fucking do it themselves. But they'll always be critics of. But a lot of it, again, when I couldn't wrestle anymore, I started doing stand up comedy and music. And I've performed all over the country doing music and comedy. And that was, again, just because it was something I wanted to do. And
Okay.
let's see if I can do this, and let's see if I can do that. And that's what I try to encourage anybody. I legitimately at one time slept in a gas station bathroom to get out of the cold, and promised myself that one day I'm going to fucking do this. And here we are today having this discussion. And I tell anybody that if it's humanly possible, you're human.
There you go.
Doesn't
And
make sense.
right, and that's a great motto to have. That's a great way to live life. And you know, like you had talked about with the writing the book and being therapeutic for you, and helping you get through some tough times and stuff. For me, this podcast is a way for that, because I've grown away from wrestling, and it used to be my life. If you'd have went back and told, you know, 10-year-old, 5-year-old, 13-year-old me that I don't watch wrestling, I don't
Mm-hmm.
watch it, and I'll watch the stuff from when I was a kid. When
Mm-hmm.
WWE Vault releases an Omni show, when they put together here's a retrospective of the Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express, I'll eat that stuff up with a spoon, hook it up to my IV, inject it into me. But you
Yeah.
know, try to get me to sit down and watch the current product of anybody, and I can't do it. I can't do it. And I didn't want to acknowledge the fact that I had spent 12 years of my life in this. I had so much time, trouble trying to find jobs when they'd sit there and Google the wrestling experience and see what's and I'd finally just stop putting it on the resume you know, when I'd rather people think I was in prison for 12 years. Like, what were you doing these 12 years gap in your, resume? I'd rather at the time I was like, I'd rather you think I was in prison than to actually Google and find out what I was actually doing for those 12 years. So, I'm
But
hoping that by doing something like this, that I could try to at least heal those wounds and embrace my past a little bit better. So it's great to hear that you're thriving with your the injuries and everything that you've faced along the way and the pitfalls. It's great to see the opposite of my negative attitude and you having the positive light and spin on it. So I'm
well,
glad to.
let me give you two words, man, that I use in my life almost daily, okay?
Mhm.
And the two words being acknowledge, meaning act on knowledge, all right? Because once you acknowledge something, now you have an obligation, all right?
Right.
You act on this knowledge or you play dumb. I'd rather act on that knowledge, all right?
Yep.
So once you acknowledge these things, and the other word is gratitude, meaning grateful in attitude, okay? And once you understand these two things and how important these things are, all right? Now, I'll rewind and I'll give you my view of the IWA in that time, all right?
Hmm.
To be able to have this conversation that I'm having with you today, I had to do
Right.
that, okay? To be relevant at this moment, to do the other things that I've done, it's the same as any other performer. You had to get stage time, you had to get out there as much as you could. And I knew the devil I was dealing with. I'm a street kid, man. Are you fucking kidding me? I come from three card Monty. You think this fucking shell game got you? Please. I knew who I was dealing with. And I knew when I walked into New Jersey the first time, and when I was walking to the ring, the fans were making fun of me for my size. But when the announcer said, American Kickboxer, and those people in the crowd went, oh shit, that's American Kickboxer. That other guy's got to be Tarek before they ever introduced. Okay.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have happened unless, you know,
Right.
there's a price for everything. Nothing's free, man. And
Right.
to have the stories that you carry and to have the memories that you carry, part of that price was, and you know, your scars might not be as visible as some, but they're there. Acknowledge them, but that was part of the price, man, to have the
Yep.
story that you have right now. And how many people? Now, think about this. The first time that you walked into a building that had a wrestling ring, and if I would have said to you, Jim Fannin, you give me whatever you got in your pocket right now, I'll let you get in that ring and play for a few, man. Would I have gotten every bit of money in your pocket at that time?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I
That,
might have tried to beat up somebody next to me to get their money to make it go a little bit longer. So yeah.
and that's and that's what I try to remind people all the time. If you ever get down on this, remember there's a time that you would have given anything that you had just to get in that ring for one fucking minute. And you got to experience that how many times?
Right. It's a great way to look at it. It's a great way to look at it. And that would almost be the perfect way to end this thing, but we still got quite a lot to talk about. We haven't even scratched the
Please.
surface. There's so many.
Yeah,
So
please fire away.
let's just run through some quick things here.
Okay.
Because we can always, as I
Yeah,
tell
we can.
everybody, we could always come back and do future episodes when we need more to go. But I just wanted to get, I have mine. I know Mitch has his. I know Mark Wolf has his. Do you have any funny fired by Ian Rotten stories that you feel like sharing?
Oh my God. Sure. Sure.
And before we start, like how you know, we always whenever I get together with the old guys, we always have to try to figure out like who got fired the most, who was fired more times than anybody else. Mitch claims the title. Mitch Page claims the title. We don't have a full count on it, but I know there was times where I'd see him get fired 4 times in one show. Um, over stupid shit that he would do. So, one, how many times were you fired? And two, how you only one? You were only one time fired by Ian. Okay, and
I
is it
walked
a
away the rest of the time. I just walked
okay?
away.
Okay, so
Um,
it was you. All right.
um, so just like back in the Sheik's territory, somebody mysteriously stole money from the money box. All right. And I get a call saying, listen, it was either you or Corporal Robinson that stole it. I'm not going to say anything more to that. All right. And I'll just.
Nothing else needs to be said, if you ask me. Okay. So
Yeah,
last
he
one.
fired me, and I'm like, well, fuck you, man. If I haven't earned my fucking reputation by now, you can eat a bag of fucking dicks.
Right. So it's always stuff like that. Always stuff like that, and you know, and it probably wasn't Corporal either. It was probably Caesars or whatever the hell it was called at that point in time. But you know,
But
what,
here's the
whatever.
story on when I walked away the first time. Um, I was offered that spot in Memphis because Bull got me there. All right.
Yeah, I
And
remember Bull being down there.
yeah, Bull was the one that brought me in, and I was brought in with the agreement to help produce television and to help develop the cruiserweight division there. And the biggest mistake that somebody made was they said that they made me. They didn't say they gave me a platform to perform and them to make money. They had the audacity to say that they made me. So when I went to Memphis, I was an American kickboxer in Memphis. I was Izzy High. And crazy enough, I got over again.
Right.
Crazy enough that if just given the platform and if you have ability but yeah, that was the other thing. Somebody had made the mistake to say that they had made me, not that they had given me a stage to fucking make myself.
Right. Yeah, that was a lot of folks have very similar stories to that one, and yeah, it's you know IWA gave a lot of guys platforms, but it took their talent to do it. It took Smart Mark to get it out to the world and the masses, and you know, led to people from Japan coming over for King of the Deathmatch tournaments, people from Australia coming over to watch. You know, it
Now,
wasn't.
have you ever seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back?
Is that the one where they go to all the critics' houses? They have like a
Yeah, yeah.
printout of everything negative
Okay,
ever
now
said
dig
about them.
this.
That one,
Yes,
yeah.
now dig this. That's amazing that you bring that up. Okay. In Memphis, my third show there, this guy comes up to me and he says, "You're American Kickboxer." Uh, and or actually, it was my first show there, pardon me. And I'm like, "Yeah? How do you know me?" He's like, "The internet." And I was like, "The internet?"
What the hell is that in 1999? You know?
So he takes me to his house and he shows me the internet. And it was almost like Jay and Silent Bob, where it's like, Who is this motherfucker? What are they
Oh,
saying?
yeah,
I had no fucking clue about any of that stuff. I knew about the tape trading a bit, but yeah, I had no idea about these different chats and Death Valley Driver chat and all those deals. So when I
yeah,
seen this, it blew me away.
yeah,
Yeah, believe it or not, kids, that far along.
yeah. Okay, so let's just do quick hits on, some thoughts of different people, and like, other than of course Tarek, and you mentioned Hero. Um, what were some favorite feuds that you were involved in? What did you think of Tyron? I always was a big fan of Tyron. I didn't get to think he was pretty much before my time in actually being involved in the show. I got to see him several times as a fan. There might have been one or two shows that where I was in the actual locker room. But what did you think of Tyron? And I always thought that he was one of the underrated guys that you got the
Tyron
opportunity.
trained, yeah, Tyron trained with Tarek and I.
Yeah,
So that was he was a guy when we were asked, "Hey, do you know any other cruiserweights or anything like that?" Tyron trained with us, and so it was yeah, we got Tyron, and man, he was so talented. And another thing that Tarek and I were the bridge for those guys, meaning you ended up with Chip Fairway.
right.
You ended up with Shark Boy. You ended up with GQ. You ended up with Les. All of those Cincinnati guys came through Tarek and I because we were the guy, you know. But yeah, again, Tyron was really talented. Rewind real quick on Chris Hero. When I first seen Hero, I seen. Let me. What Tarek and I created was we set a plateau that there was how could I top that?
Right.
And I ran into that all the time. How do I top what Tarek and I did? Todd Morton and I in Memphis, Izzy High and Todd Morton, we did a hell of a job at it. But when I seen Chris Hero and I seen the way he moved and the way he worked, this was the guy that I could actually do a match that would be greater than anything that Tarek and I did. And it was, yeah, that's what I seen with Hero.
Hero was super talented and he could do all styles. That guy watched everything and knew how to do everything. And he was a lot like Dusty Rhodes, where you would look at him and think, he's not that great of an athlete, but he could do anything inside the ring. He could go for hell, he went 93 minutes and would have energy at the end. So like the people that would get on him for his look, I would, to this day, I'll fist fight anybody over, that wants to besmirch the name of Chris Hero,
Now,
because there was some good stuff that he could do.
even funnier than that, our schools were rivals. Okay, our
Okay.
actual schools. The high school that he went to was a rival of the school that I had went to. So he went to
Okay.
Northmont. He grew up actually maybe 15-20 minutes from where I lived at one
Okay.
time. So yeah,
In
so
in
we
that
kind of
Dayton area.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the other funny thing. I'd be like, "Oh, you're one of those Thunderbolts, aren't you?" Because that was his team's mascot, the North Mountain
Okay.
Thunderbolts. Yeah, and
Nice.
yeah, so yeah, I'd rib him about that a little bit. But
Okay. And then what about just quick thoughts on Suicide Kid in the matches with him?
yeah. I'll give you a funny one. When Suicide Kid got started, they were accusing him because he had got started in OVW, and people had accused him of being me because he was under a mask. And so as a rib, I gave him one of my old masks, and he was wearing my old mask on TV
Nice.
he was the American Ninja or something along those lines when he
Okay.
first got started. And so yeah, he was the good looking cruiserweight. He had the baby face looks, and it was easy
The
to
girls loved him. The girls
yeah,
loved him. Him
it was
him and
easy.
Corporal, and I don't know how Corporal was so popular with the ladies, but yeah, him and Suicide Kid, they dominated that scene for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't my scene. I had such baby face looks. I wore a hood, so
Well, I probably should have wore a hood, but I was a heel, so it was perfectly fine for me to look the way I did, and you know,
right.
uh, and so those were pretty much the cruiserweights that came through because, like you said, there wasn't a lot doing it back then. At that time, there wasn't a lot that
Well, I
could
helped.
even could do what you guys did. Um, was there anybody else cruiserweight style that came through IWA other than those that
Shark Boy. I
Shark
helped give
Boy?
Shark
Yeah,
Boy.
yeah.
I helped
And
give him his name there. So crazy enough, he was El Piranha, and
okay, yeah, I remember El Pirata, and
he wanted to switch his name. So basically, myself and the one that goes unnamed sat on a stairwell talking, and at the time, the San Jose Sharks were getting hot, and
okay,
his outfit resembled the San Jose Sharks. So
okay,
yeah, I brought up that idea. So yeah, that's where Shark Boy came from. So.
okay. So other than the cruiserweights, you mentioned that you like to work with Pondo because he would actually like want to do stuff.
Oh yeah,
Did you get to do? You didn't get to do a whole lot with the other hardcore guys, did you? At that point,
no,
he pretty much kept you to the cruiserweights.
no, because of my shoot background, anytime that he had a shooter come in that they were trying to work into the wrestling style, pro style, I'd end up getting put with them as well. So I did like shoot stuff with Tom Burton back in the day as
Yeah, okay,
well.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, some of
And then
those.
with later on with Adrian Serrano as
Yeah,
well.
Serrano, that guy was a character. He was.
He was a fun man. I had a lot of fun with him.
I remember one. I'm sure when I'll get Mitch on here one day, and I remember he took and hit Mitch right in the nose and broke Mitch's nose like
Oh,
5 seconds into the match. He was
oh,
almost the first thing he did. And I mean, he obviously didn't mean to do it, but I don't know if
mm,
I can't remember if it was like the lockup and maybe he hit him or it was supposed to be like a forearm or something, but he like got Mitch right in the nose, shattered Mitch's nose, blood everywhere, and the whole match, Serrano was like, "Hey, hit me back, get me back, Mitch, get me back." And Mitch is like, "Fuck you, I ain't gonna I ain't gonna have you forget that you told me to do this. If you could do that to me in
right.
5 seconds, I ain't risking what else you could do to me if I piss you off. So no."
Yeah, I thought you were getting ready to tell the story of Serrano doing squats with Mitch on his shoulders.
No, no, I don't think I was even there for that one. What happened
Yeah,
with
that
that?
was in the dressing. Yeah, that happened in the dressing room. Serrano put Mitch right up on his shoulders and was doing squats with
Wow,
him.
Jesus,
Yeah, that's
he
how strong
was.
Serrano was.
I know I went into Ian had lived in that trailer park at the time, and there was a Thornton's. There was like a Thornton's gas station right at where you would turn to go in to the trailer park, and Serrano would come. Ain't going to pay for a hotel room, so Serrano would come and stay the night when he'd come in, and so we go into the Thorntons, So because Serrano wanted to get something to drink or whatever, and the fucker's got like a Rolex watch on. He's he's got a tank top, he's got regular old shorts, he's got flip flops, and then he's got like a $10,000 watch on, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he's walking through the Thorntons. He's got the cauliflower ear, and he's talking to me, and he sounds like he's Mike Tyson with the
Yep.
high pitched squeaky voice. And we're just chatting and walking through, and this guy keeps following us through the Thorntons, and he keeps going, "Hey man, that's a nice watch." And Serrano would turn around and look at him and be like, "Well, thank you very much." And you know, and he's watching. We're going through, and we get like a couple of 2 liters or whatever the hell it was that we were going to get to drink, and put it up onto the counter. And Serrano's like, "I know you didn't get paid nothing tonight, buddy. I got you. I got you. I got my Japan fight money. I got you." And he like opens up his wallet, and it's like something out of the movie. He had the old fashioned wallet with like the accordion plastic holders, and it opens, and there's probably like 50 credit cards that come flopping down in the plastic, and they're all like, diamond plus platinum this and everything from all the shoot fights and travels and whatever. And he like he puts his hand down on the counter, and this guy that's been following us around reaches out and grabs for the watch, and Serrano like does the same like palm thrust thing that he did to Mitch, drops this fucker in a heap right at the register. The woman that's working is like, "Oh my god, oh my god." We're like, "Just give us 5 seconds to walk out, call 911, have the man
Yeah.
arrested for trying to rob us." But wait for us to get out, because I mean they knew all of us in that, so
Mm-hmm.
because of how many times that we would be in there. But he just, what went through this guy's mind to think of, here's this guy built like a damn brick shithouse fire hydrant with a cauliflower ear. So anybody that sees an ear like that should know this guy's a fighter. And
So,
and to
so
think that
imagine,
he was going to take this watch from him, just to this day blows my mind, and it's
so
crazy.
imagine if you will, when he's introduced to me, and yeah, this is the guy that's going to break you in, and this guy's going to help you learn the business.
I bet
And
that
that's, yeah, just looking me up and down, and
what
you know,
what's this little guy gonna do? What's this little guy gonna do? Oh, God, my nose all pushed over. What's this little guy going to do?
and then he
But
looked at my nose. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But
and,
hey,
and, and,
you're pretty tough, huh? You're pretty tough. Yeah, yeah. I guess you're
Jesus
pretty
Christ,
tough.
if Adrian Serrano, I don't know if he's still alive and he somehow ends up seeing this thing. I'm not making fun of you, man. I love you. I
No,
love you. Don't
no.
come hunt me down. Don't hurt me, Adrian. Don't hurt me.
Yeah,
Uh,
he was such an awesome guy, man. I can't say that enough about him. Yeah, he was an awesome guy.
all right, so we're coming up here to the end, Kickboxer. I want to give you a chance. Just first, what moment did you know that your in-ring career was over? Can you
Uh,
put in how did you know that it was time?
Ironically enough, and we're looking right now, time wise, it's October 22nd. So 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 13 years ago, um, I was having a match in Pittsburgh. And in the middle of the match, I had a seizure. And I had a seizure in the middle of the ring. And I have what are called absent seizures. I'm aware of everything that's going on around me, but I can't react. My body's completely rigid. It's not like a grand mal where people are usually whipping around. I
Right,
go
right.
kind of rigid. I'm rigid and I can't respond. And I was in that position in the middle of the ring. And as I've said before, wrestling was the escape for me as a kid. And as I laid there, I could see people in the crowd and they knew something was wrong. They knew that something, and I could see kids as well. And I would hate to think that a kid who was coming for that escape, that my ego would be more than. Does that make sense? That
It makes perfect sense, and you don't want that to be anybody's lasting memory of you. You do, and people get with where I
turned away
work,
from it. Yeah.
where I work now, I have to deal with some. I work at a college, and we have students that have seizures, and when I get called to have to come and respond and try to get help for them and try to decide whether an ambulance is needed or whatever, and you look, and people don't mean to do it. They
Mm-hmm.
don't mean to act the way that they do, but it's almost like, oh, I don't want to, they
Mm-hmm.
look at you like you're an alien, or you know
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to be involved, I don't want to see, and just the look that some people would give. And I can definitely understand. You're sitting there going, I don't want people to look at me like that. I don't want to cause trauma, because then other people, you can tell they're just like freaked out, and they're
And
almost in
and
a worse position than the person that's actually having the seizure.
and with that, the other really cool thing is, and you've said it yourself, and it was such an honor to hear you say it and to hear it said, but I had created a body of work that I didn't want to tarnish as well.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's there's people that talked about they had watched me when they were there, and they had brought their kids to come see me as well because they had watched me. And the last thing that I would ever want to do is make somebody feel foolish, number one, for fucking believing anything that I had ever done,
Right.
or taint their memory of what I had done by staying too fucking long. And yeah, I'm good on that. And I had other goals. I was blessed enough with that I had a moment of realization that I had spent all this time trying to be Ric Flair, trying to be the Road Warriors, trying to be those guys. But in the same regards, I was developing the ability to speak, excuse me, like a Bill Hicks, like a Sam Kinison. And I played guitar as well. And did I want to be known as just somebody who could take a good bump and have a good wrestling match? Or did I want to be known as somebody who, when I had the spotlight, I tried to make the most of it in every opportunity that I had? And with those abilities, while I still had the spotlight. That's why we're still here talking.
Right. Right. It's an amazing story, and it's sad but most, it's going to be something like that causes somebody to have to step out of the ring. It's an injury, it's an illness, it's something that we
But
never want it to be that way. We want to go out, everybody wants to be able to go out on their own terms. Did you think
but
that did you think that it was your own terms?
yeah, yeah. Honestly, in all reality, I mean, I was a guy that wasn't even supposed to be in the fucking business. All right. And, and in all reality, I achieved so much more than I ever should have with it. And still here we are 35 fucking years later talking about it. And that's, man, if anything, being able, and here's the other thing. When I got started, and as I've explained before, there's a price for everything. Okay. When I got started, I knew these days would be here. There's no way to escape it with what I was doing. I knew that these days would come, but that was part of the price to live the life that I've lived as well. And I took that, the only medicine that I use for pain, I smoke marijuana. That's it. I take absolutely zero pills whatsoever for pain. I had the nerves burned in my neck about 8 months ago. I'm getting ready to have to do that again. I deal with a degenerative disc disease as well, my neck and my lower back, but that's no excuse to become an addict.
No.
That's my point. Okay. And so many people use this business as their out and as their excuse for all of their misery. And no, fuck that.
And
Okay. Yeah.
we've known way too many that have lost their lives because of it.
And if you've how many pie charts do you have to fucking see? If you go down this road, this is what's gonna fucking happen. And there has to be a personal accountability. Okay. And I'm so tired of bitter, broken people who blame the wrestling business, except they don't acknowledge it for all of the good that it actually gave them because they can't see outside of the wrestler fucking box. They
Right.
don't understand all the skills that they actually developed in this business. And because they're stuck in this wrestler fucking box. I'm tired of seeing dead, bitter wrestlers. That's, yeah.
Amen to that one. And you talked about the skills that were developed. So let's finish up on what kickboxers doing now. We already talked about your book that's coming out in a couple of weeks. I will be sure to put links up on all my stuff. People will be able
Yeah.
to definitely see the links on yours when that time comes and the link is available. So other than the book, I know you've got your podcast that I'm going to be recording in a couple of
Yeah.
days. So tell the folks how they can watch your podcast and a
Okay.
little bit about that.
Yeah, we've got I am actually involved in 3 shows on the internet now in our podcast world. We have the first one, which is WMW, which is Weed, Music, and Wrestling. And that's what we review, weed, music, and wrestling in those segments. The other show that we have is called Resin, and that's more of our open ended interview show. And that's the show that we're going to have you on this next
Okay.
week.
All right.
Is Resin. It's just, yeah, we've already done our reviews of weed, music, and wrestling.
Okay,
We're just going to
because
have an
I
open
can't
ended.
I can't I can't help you with the weed reviews and the my music is put to Sinatra, the Beatles, Elvis, Simon and Garfunkel. So if you got, I could help
Yeah,
you
I'm with
I
that.
could help you with those. Anything
When are
outside of that,
we?
I probably don't know much on the music side. So,
Yeah,
um,
when are we going to Scarborough Fair, man? I'm all about
oh,
that. So, but
great stuff.
also, the third show that we're now adding to is going directly to our streaming service is called Hitting the Books. And what we're doing is we're reviewing different pay per views, going down the lines, looking at the booking of the past, and looking at what was going on at that time as well in the promotion and the booking office, who was involved, the possible angles and whatnot. And we're just truly looking over booking and how to, how they could have possibly gotten a better and a review out of it. It's an open-ended discussion with myself, comedian and wrestling historian Alex Jaffe, and my co-host, the THC dog Christopher Pelton, who's also the publisher for my book. And the name of the
Okay.
publishing company is THC Papers. Imagine that, right? So, but
Fitting
I'm
name.
also
Fitting name.
also involved with right now putting together the programming for a streaming service. You look us up at ECUSA. And what we're doing there is we're providing original programming as well. Um, Madman Pondo is going to be one of our hosts for our horror show programs. Tarek the Great is going to be the host for our Headbangers Balls type show. That's somebody else you guys should check out. He's got new music out, Clock Towers. Look them up. That's the Tarek the Great's project.
Okay.
He's lead singer for that. Clock Towers is the name of the band. And but we're providing on the streaming service, we're going to be providing wrestling blocks with different promotions around the country, as
Okay.
well as different podcasts. And then we have our days of horror, where we do horror movies and horror shows. And then we're also, as I said, we're doing music as well. And then we're also going to be adding different video game content. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so check that out. That's ECUSA. And that's available on Roku, Apple TV, and all of those streaming services.
Okay.
So, as well as if you look us up, it's the WMW podcast on YouTube. You can find us there. It stands for Weed, Music, and Wrestling. And
Okay.
I try to keep in my own, my own wheelhouse.
There you go. So a lot of ways that the fans can reach out to you. Do you got like a Twitter account or anything that you want to let people
Uh,
know to
if
look into?
if you just hashtag Gypsy for Life or Gypsy Crew, and when I say Gypsy for Life, that's Gypsy and then the number four and then a life. Hit that, and you can find me there.
All right. So it's been great to get to actually know you a little bit better and to have this conversation. I'm glad we did this. I'm looking forward to you driving the show and leading the discussion here in a couple of days.
Yeah.
Probably get me back for some of the situations I put you in today with some of the memories and bringing it up. But I appreciate that you shared that with
Before we
us.
close out,
Yeah.
nobody is going to put you on the spot on your show except me right now.
Okay.
Tell me your favorite Tracy Smothers story.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, do you want the favorite Tracy Smothers story that's egotistically about me, or do you
Yeah,
want
sure, why not?
my favorite? Well, we'll tell that one on your
Okay.
podcast. We'll save that one for your podcast because I'm sure I'll end up telling that story multiple times on this one. So
So,
I'll save my listeners that one. But
uh,
my favorite Tracy Smothers story actually involves Isaiah. Okay, so
awesome.
we'll put it to where it sort of has something to do with what we've talked about already, and Isaiah being your student. It was in Charlestown. I think Isaiah was he may not have been a rookie, but he was very young at the time,
Mhm.
and it's in Charlestown, Indiana, in the Blue Barn.
Yeah.
Uh, and Tracy Smothers wrestles Isaiah, and Tracy always the heel borderline tweener, right? So wrestles the match as the heel. Uh, Actually, I think he got the win. I can't remember if he won or lost. I think he actually won, but he gets on the mat. He gets under the mic afterwards, and he does it like only Tracy can, right? And he's on that microphone and he's like, "All right, Charlestown, Indiana, ain't it great to be alive on a Saturday night in Charlestown, Indiana?" And the crowd's like, "Yay, yay!" And then, wait a minute, I fucking hate this place. Charlestown is a hellhole. I hate this place. This is disgusting. I'd rather be anywhere else on the face of the earth. And we're like, wow, that was kind of cool. And then he's like, oh, wait. I apologize. I apologize. I apologize. Listen. Isaiah, ain't Isaiah great? Everybody give Isaiah a hand. He is a great up and comer. Isaiah, you did phenomenal out there. And the crowd cheers. And then he's like, wait a minute. Fuck you, Isaiah. You suck. And you're horrible. And it was just this. I think by the end, we counted like 16 times that Tracy flipped between babyface and heel in this post match promo, doing it like only he could, and just and the crowd eating out of the palm of his hands every single time. And it was just nobody could do it like Tracy. Nobody could do
Uh,
it like Tracy. I always had, at that point, a lot of the times I would just ring announce because I didn't have, an angle where I was, actively managing at the time. So I would ring announce, and I always had two rules. One, always hand the microphone to Cash Flow, because you'd never know what the hell Cash Flow would say if you put him on the spot. And so I would hand it to him, and then he'd look at me like, "You son of a bitch." And then he'd try to come up with a promo off the top of his head and say something ridiculous, and everybody would have a laugh. And then the second rule, always give the microphone to Tracy, no matter what. And Ian would yell at me. He's like, "I did not tell you to give him the fucking mic. You know, do you only give the mic to who I tell you to give the mic to? Tracy doesn't get to talk every night." And I'm like, "The fuck he doesn't."
Right.
And every damn night I would hand Tracy that microphone. And so, you know, Ian was so pissed off at me when I got into the back after that match, because I had, you know, Tracy hung around just long enough for me to hand that microphone to a second time. And like I said, it was just a thing of beauty watching him go back and forth. I love Charlestown. I hate Charlestown. I love Isaiah. I hate Isaiah. And then he would always be like, you know, every time I come here, it's like I'm in Beirut, man. You got to fight for your life. I'm just waiting for the tanks and the missiles to come out. And oh my God. And I mean, we were just dying. And then I get into the back, and, you know, the Brent Blades and everybody were like, was that like how many times did he flip between? But you could only get stuff like that from Tracy Smothers. So that's my non about me favorite Tracy Smothers story. And there's so many like that. Just almost every week, you know, he would provide something like that with and the fans would always leave. And I would always love the Kmart building back when I was just a fan sitting in the crowd. And Tracy would always work the Louisville Gardens first, be like first or second on the USWA show at the Gardens, and then he'd drive across town, get to the Kmart building. And like the people that, you know, most people listening probably never saw the Kmart building, never saw the setup, never saw a show there. You know, the ring was where, like, it's an old Kmart building, and the wrestling side was like where the car repair garage was to do oil changes and everything else. So we'd be on the garage side. Like the locker room was like in the back, and there was a door in the back that Tracy could walk into, never be seen. Nobody would know when he arrived. Nobody would know when he left, and he could get in there. No, Tracy goes through either the front door, where he would have to walk all through the crowd to get to the very back of the building to get into the locker room. Or there was also like a side door that was like a roll up garage door kind of thing that they would like pull up, and the car could pull in to like get into the garage area. And sometimes he would just fling open that garage door, metal roll up garage door, fling it open, and walk straight through the crowd. Whoever would, you know, match going on, whoever was in the ring would have to stop what they're doing, put like a headlock on, and wait for Tracy to walk through, because everybody would turn their attention and want to fight Tracy. And Tracy would start a riot like every goddamn week. He would come in mid-show, stop whatever was going on, and I'm sure a couple of times it had to have been you and Tarek that would be on when he would come through, and you would just have to stop everything that you were doing while Tracy came in, disrupted everything, created chaos, and then walked to the back. And the best part about it all was that he had that door in the back that he could have went to. So you know, he did it on purpose every single time. God bless Tracy Smothers.
And as I said, man, anytime I go on any of these podcasts or anything like that, if you want to smile, you just say, "Tell me your best Tracy Smothers story." I owe Tracy Smothers so much in this world. And anytime that I do anything like this, I'll always bring up his name. I'll never, ever be able to repay that man. So,
well, tell me your favorite Tracy Smothers story then.
Okay, it's in his book, and he churched it up in his book. But and you might have been there. Were you there at the Colgate building when Harley was in?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. While Harley Race was inside, Tracy Smothers and I were outside smoking in my car. And Tracy starts saying, because Tracy is such a fan of Harley, Oh man, Harley Race is in there, man. You know Harley Race, man. Lightning shoots from his fucking elbows, man. That Harley Race, man. We're out here getting high. He's gonna pick me off, man. He's gonna know I'm high, man. He's gonna treat me like a fucking dude, man. I swear, that's Harley Race, man. You know how bad that motherfucker is. He gonna drive 180 miles an hour. He don't give a fuck, man. And he gets out of my car and he starts rubbing snow on himself so he doesn't smell like potty, thinking it's going to take the smell off. He's like, man, and I'm telling him, Tracy, man, this building's big enough that if you try hard enough, man, you could avoid Harley all night if you want. He's like, man, he's going to pick me right off. He's going to know I'm all high and shit like a fucking goof. And you remember the stairs? You walked up the stairs
Yes,
and
in the
then
back.
opened the door.
Yes.
Tracy walked up them stairs and opened the door, and as he opened the door, there's Harley right fucking there. And he just looked back at the car and shook his head at me. And I'm rolling now in the car. I'm fucking dying. He just looked back and shook his head at me. But that's one of my favorite Tracy stories, man.
And that is the perfect way to go ahead and wrap this up. So I just want to thank you very much for joining me today, Kickboxer. I had a great time. Make sure that you check out Kickboxer's YouTube channel that he talked about, his podcast, that streaming service. Check out all of that. Make sure to buy the book when it's released in a couple of weeks. So we're gonna have all those links available to you, so you can just click them when this gets released. And remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips and matches and these podcasts. Make sure you click like and subscribe. Check out brokenmerchtable.com for t-shirts of Nick Manawa, Jess B's Knees, Mean Mitch Page, Rollin' Hard, and yours truly. You can follow me on Twitter at jfannin73, TikTok at jim.jj.fannin, and on Instagram at IWA Fannin73. And we'll see you next time when Les Johns joins me for episode 4 of Fannin's Flashbacks on what should be the 28th anniversary of that first show in Lexington. So let it be written, and so let it be done. Good day.
Whoop, whoop.